I'm staring at a tax bill that's making my stomach drop, $4,279. That's how much I owed the IRS last year, all because I didn't understand the difference between a 1099 and a W-2. I was a gig worker, making decent money, but I had no idea how much I was really losing to taxes. It was like throwing money out the window, and it took me months to pay off that bill. You're probably in a similar situation, feeling like you're making good money, but somehow, you're still struggling to make ends meet. You're not alone. Millions of people in the US are gig workers, and they're all facing the same tax challenges. The thing is, most of us don't even realize how much we're losing to taxes, because we're not looking at the right numbers. We're looking at our take-home pay, not our gross income. And that's where the problem starts. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to calculate your true tax cost, and how to use that information to make smarter financial decisions. You'll be able to see where your money is going, and how to keep more of it. It's not about being a tax expert, it's about being aware of the hidden costs of gig work. I know a friend who's a freelance writer, making around $60,000 a year. She thought she was doing great, until she got her tax bill, and it was over $10,000. She had no idea she was losing that much to taxes, and it was a huge shock. But then she started learning about tax deductions, and how to use them to her advantage. Now, she's saving thousands of dollars a year, just by being more aware of her taxes. Let's talk about the difference between a 1099 and a W-2. A W-2 is what you get when you're an employee, and your employer withholds taxes from your paycheck. But when you're a gig worker, you get a 1099, and you're responsible for paying your own taxes. That means you need to set aside money for taxes, and you need to know how much to set aside. The problem is, most of us don't know how to calculate our tax liability, so we end up owing a lot of money at the end of the year. Here's an example. Let's say you're making $50,000 a year as a gig worker, and you're not setting aside any money for taxes. You might think you're taking home the full $50,000, but in reality, you're probably losing around 25 to 30% of that to taxes. That's $12,500 to $15,000 just gone. And if you're not prepared, that can be a huge shock. But if you know how to calculate your tax liability, you can set aside the right amount of money and avoid owing a lot of taxes at the end of the year. So, how do you calculate your tax liability? It's actually pretty simple. You just need to know your gross income and your tax bracket. Let's say you're making $50,000 a year, and you're in the 24% tax bracket. You can estimate your tax liability by multiplying your gross income by your tax bracket. That gives you $12,000, which is a pretty good estimate of your tax liability. Of course, there are other factors that can affect your taxes, like deductions and credits, but this gives you a good starting point. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but I'm not making that much money. I'm just barely scraping by. And I get it, times are tough. But the thing is, even if you're not making a lot of money, you can still benefit from understanding your tax liability. You can use that information to make smarter financial decisions, like setting aside more money for taxes, or looking for ways to reduce your tax liability. For example, let's say you're making $30,000 a year, and you're in the 12% tax bracket. You might think you don't owe that much in taxes, but if you're not setting aside any money for taxes, you could still end up owing a lot of money at the end of the year. By estimating your tax liability, you can set aside the right amount of money and avoid owing a lot of taxes. And that can make a huge difference, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck. So, what can you do to reduce your tax liability? One thing you can do is look for tax deductions. These are expenses that you can deduct from your taxable income, which can reduce your tax liability. For example, if you're a gig worker, you might be able to deduct expenses like your home office or your computer and phone. You can also deduct expenses like travel or meals with clients. Another thing you can do is look for tax credits. These are like deductions, but they're even more valuable because they directly reduce your tax liability. For example, if you're eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit, you could get a refund of up to $6,000. That's a lot of money, and it can make a huge difference, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but I don't know anything about taxes. I don't even know where to start. And that's okay, because you don't have to be a tax expert to understand your tax liability. You just need to be aware of the basics and how to use that information to make smarter financial decisions. So, what's the first step you can take to start reducing your tax liability? One thing you can do is start tracking your expenses. This will help you see where your money is going and how much you can deduct from your taxable income. You can use a spreadsheet or an app like QuickBooks to track your expenses. And then, you can use that information to estimate your tax liability and make smarter financial decisions. If you're struggling to pay off debt, or just trying to make ends meet, it's time to take control of your finances. Start by estimating your tax liability, and then look for ways to reduce it. You can do this by tracking your expenses and looking for tax deductions and credits. It's not rocket science, but it does take some awareness and effort. So, what's holding you back from taking control of your finances? Is it debt, or lack of savings, or just not knowing where to start? Whatever it is, I want you to know that you're not alone. Millions of people are struggling with the same issues, and there are resources available to help. Drop your biggest debt in the comments below. I read every single comment, and I want to hear from you. What's the one thing that's holding you back from achieving financial freedom? Is it credit card debt, or student loans, or something else entirely? Let me know, and I'll do my best to help. If you know someone who's struggling to pay off debt, or just trying to make ends meet, send them this video. It might just be the wake-up call they need to start taking control of their finances. And if you found this video helpful, hit like, and consider subscribing to our channel. We're all about helping people achieve financial freedom, and we've got a ton of resources available to help. In our next video, we're going to be talking about how to invest in cryptocurrency without losing your shirt. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, because I've been investing in crypto for years, and I've learned a thing or two about how to do it safely. So, be sure to check it out, and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.